It's recording.
Uh, yeah, I'm here with Carolyn Nixon, and we're doing an interview about the civil rights movement and how life was back during the 60s. So, my first question for you is, how was your childhood living during these times?
During that time, I was basically a teenager, and it was much different then than it is now. For instance, there were places that we weren't able to go, like when I lived in the South, there were certain bathrooms, even public bathrooms, that was marked white and colored. And if a black person went into the bathroom that was marked white, they could be arrested. There were restaurants that you couldn't go in, that you would have to go in through the back, and they would serve you across a counter in the back. You wasn't allowed to come into the restaurant in the front. So there were a lot of things that was going on then that was really very negative as far as blacks were concerned.
Okay, nice. Okay, as we're still going into your childhood, like how was the environment of your school as you going to an all black school during these times?
With me living in the South in Alabama, the schools that we went to was inferior to the white schools. As a matter of fact, the books that we were taught from, the curriculum they used for the black kids was secondary. We got their books that was used, that they had used in their school, was passed on to us when they got newer books and updated books. We got their secondhand books. So most of the books that came to our school was raggedy, written through. Some of the pages were missing because we had gotten books from their school that they weren't that they had used and was finished with, and their books was updated and ours wasn't. Even our school wasn't updated like theirs. You know, they had different labs and so forth in their schools that we didn't have. Uh, Coming home from school, they would be riding the bus and we would be walking because they didn't have buses for us to ride on. And they would sometimes, the kids on their white buses would throw eggs and different fruit and stuff at the black kids when they were walking, when the bus would pass them, and they would call us all kind of names. Even the N word was really prevalent then in their vocabulary as far as blacks were concerned.
Okay. Yeah, we're still going on the school thing here. You, as I'm sure you probably remember the case Brown versus the Board of Education. As once that trial was over and the schools were they was no longer black and whites, how did you feel the change was from black and whites, from just being a black all black school to a black and white school, like both of them together?
During that time, when the schools were integrated, there were still a lot of controversy as far as black kids invading their white schools. So there were a lot of fights, there were a lot of negativism going on between the children, and even sometimes the teachers would have different attitudes with the blacks rather than with the white children. And so there was still a lot of problems going on then. As a matter of fact, when they did integrate the schools, a lot of times police officers would have to protect the black kids going into the schools because their parents and the whites in the neighborhoods would be out there to try to fight and hurt the black kids. So they would have to have national guards. They would have to have police officers and everything at the school to protect the black kids when they went into those white schools.
Okay. As you're growing up in the school and stuff, I know that you wanted to be a nurse. Now, going to school for being a nurse, you think it was harder because of your color? You think it was harder for you to process in school than the white or the Caucasian people? Do you think gave them more lenience because of their color? Like, yeah.
When I was in nursing school, the white students there were more advanced than myself because I had graduated from a high school in Alabama, which I told you was inferior to as far as the. So I did have to study much harder, and I did have to be exceptional to rate to their standards, to keep up with the classes and so forth. So I didn't get the problems with the school or the instructors I was dealing with. It was the lack of knowledge that I had to really study to keep up to make sure I made the grades that was necessary to get through the nursing program.
Yeah. Okay. Like you saying, you live in Alabama and stuff like this. Do you think that do you think it was from moving to Alabama to Michigan? Do you think that the racism and the hatred between black and whites were more common in Alabama than in Michigan? Do you think the people, your surroundings and stuff, was they more like hurtful as in what they were saying in Alabama or in Michigan?
In Alabama, it was an open prejudice. In Michigan, it was more like a behind the scene prejudice. So there was still prejudice in Michigan, but it wasn't as open and you know prominent. It wasn't open like in Alabama. It wasn't open in Michigan like it was in Alabama. Alabama, it was just basically a way of life. In Michigan, it was still there, but it was more hidden than in Alabama. So there were a difference, but the prejudice was still there.
Well, that really wraps up my interview for today. I'm Nathan Nixon, and your name,
Carolyn Nixon.
and this is my report, Civilized.